Okay, recording started. And I think it's 3:01, so I think this is a good time to start, right? Make sure you unmute yourself, Steph, when you need to. Hey everyone, happy Monday. Happy Monday.
Woohoo! Happy
Woo!
Monday.
We made it through another week of real estate and COVID-19 and the pandemic. So I think that that's always something that we should celebrate. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about the DISC profile and basically how to master your communication, not only in your business, but also in your personal life by using the DISC profile. So here with me today, I have my wonderful, fantastic, very talented counterpart, Stephanie Alatorre, out of the Calabasas office. Welcome, Stephanie.
Welcome, welcome, Halley. Thank you for those kind words.
Of course, of course. So let's start at the basics at the beginning. So the DISC profile is basically a communication assessment where you literally are breaking down into pieces how you like to communicate and how you like to receive communication. It is a very common practice to use this or another type of a personality communication assessment when you're in leadership. But I really am encouraging all of you to use this in your day-to-day lives, not only in your business, but also in your personal relationships. So we all know that some of the most successful people are the most successful because they have this level of self-awareness. And that starts out with doing some more journeying beyond what you have at your fingertips and looking into things that you may subconsciously know about yourself or you may not know about yourself. And that's going to start and stop at the DISC, in my opinion. So remember, the DISC measures observable behaviors and emotions and motivators that show value and drive behind our behavior and emotion. I'm going to go through and talk about a few things today, and Stephanie's going to be able to help me and elaborate with her own experience. But we're going to learn basically how to read a DISC profile. What do all those letters stand for? We're going to learn a little bit more insight about each of the different categories. We're going to learn how to be able to communicate and understand people who are opposite categories as we are. And we're also going to talk a little bit about growth and coaching. So for those of you on the call that are possibly thinking about having another agent, maybe growing a team, maybe you already have a team and you're struggling to communicate with each other, this is going to be the perfect class for you to gain some of that insight. Okay. Now through this whole time, I'm going to be showing you a lot of slides. If you can't see them or understand them or anything, just shoot me an email, halley@kw.com, and I can forward all my presentation to you so you can see it later, okay, as I pull up those screens. Also, as you have questions, Stephanie's going to be monitoring the Facebook Live for me, and hopefully we can get them answered as they come in. But please drop them here. If you have any questions, this is the perfect platform to be able to ask, okay? Great, so let's see if I can pull up the presentation here. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Steph, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so there are many different levels and different kinds of DISC reports out there. You do see a little bit of a difference between the different formats, but generally they're all the same. So what's important for you is to understand the guidelines of what's in the report. So when you actually go to take one and you go to fill out all those questions, remember the scores in the report are a snapshot in time. So when you do take the personality assessment, it's very common to come across in a different way than you may 10 years down the road when you retake the test. It's very common for people to change, even sometimes on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. So keep it in mind that it's just exactly what's happening in that moment when you're taking the test. Again, it tries to be as thorough as possible, but it's just a snapshot in those. So, two, keep in mind, there's no good scores and there's no bad scores, but there are consequences, right? So, good and bad, not a D is better than a C or is better than an S or is better than an I. So, it's important to know that those are all in an equal playing field, but the consequences to that basically is just sharing, depending on the type of field that you're in and the type of work that you do, you might need to focus on some of your communication traits more than some of your other counterparts, right? Particularly when we are in a sales-driven industry. It's just something to kind of keep in mind. And three, the key is to understand your motivational preferences so you can flex with the situation to encourage progress. Again, these tests are always to seek more knowledge and to build what we have to be able to make changes and be able to implement all of these into your day-to-day communications. Okay, so what works? Make sure you decide your level and effort and intensity that you want to use moving forward. Okay? Pick one simple behavior as to how long you think through a problem or how much of an endeavor that you need to go through to get what you need from someone. Okay? So don't look at this and see it on a laundry list of things that you need to fix about your behavior, that it's something you might need fixing. Focus on one or two little things and work up from there. It's important to develop an understanding, of the motivational orientation with your DISC profile. And I'm going to show you guys what that looks like a little bit later. So the same rules apply for what doesn't work. Not starting and giving up on working on your communications, either with yourself, with a team member, with your team leader, whoever that may be, is a key point of making sure that it's not going to work, right? I think the same things apply to real estate, right, Steph? You got to work to work, right? Getting more information, sometimes it can change your attitude and your behavior when you are constantly seeking and feeling like you're never quite good enough and you feel like you always need more information before you start making changes. Okay, so keep that in mind. Wanting to get better at something is easy. Sticking with small changes is a different story. Okay, so it's just, again, important that we work on this every single day, and we're implementing even just little steps. So again, avoid pursuing ideal motivational activities or work. Make sure you're using it, again, on a small scale. You don't need to quit the real estate industry because you have a DISC profile that may not lend itself to real estate. So let's move forward. So let's talk about what DISC actually stands for. So DISC stands for dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientious. Now, some reports might have a different S or a C. They might call it critical or steady, but it all basically means the same thing. So to break down each of those styles a little bit further, dominance. So their tendencies, they tend to be direct and guarded. Okay. Influencers tend to be direct and open. Steadiness tends to be indirect and open. And conscientious tends to be indirect and guarded. Right? So those are, in a nutshell, if you were going to have one sentence, that would describe each of the DISC motivators. And I'm sure that even just talking about it right now, people are popping off in your head, right? Of what you may think that they may be categorized under. But let's break this down just a little bit further. So these graphs and charts right here are going to show you the behavior descriptors of each style. So the dominant behaviors, they're the drivers usually of conversation, of organization, of offices, of leadership opportunities. These are those people that are very direct. They're very decisive. They tend to be competitive, persistent, adventurous. They're very results oriented. Okay, so they really very much so need to be in the driver's seat. The influencers These are our people persons. Okay, these are our friendly, charming, confident, enthusiastic, optimistic, persuasive, sociable, trusting. So they are our social butterflies of this category. Steadiness, these are going to be the people that are your, I call them the river. Okay, they're the river people. So they're the ones that are going to be there, be understanding and friendly. They're great listeners. They tend to be very relaxed, very patient, very sincere, steady. They're fantastic team players, right? They're the people that you always kind of see on one level. They never really have those real high highs and real low lows, right? So then we move on to our fantastic conscientious people, our C's, right? These people are the fantastic analysts, computer people, numbers people of the world, right? These people are very precise, they're very accurate, they're very analytical, they're very diplomatic, they're always very courteous. I've found that very, very often across the board. They tend to be very objective people, right? So you can look here into the deeper styles, the deeper look at the 4 styles. So they tend to, high dominant style, we have that high D. They tend to be really assertive. High influencing, they tend to be very persuasive. High steady is very patient and very contemplative. So as we encounter our clients and our colleagues and our coworkers here in this industry, it's important for us to understand and be able to identify each one of those styles, right? There are certain questions and certain things that we can ask to be able to identify them. So really familiarize yourself with these pages that I'm going through here to be able to know the other styles, because not just knowing yourself, but knowing others is going to extremely help your communications. Okay, so it's important to know that each industry and each situation is going to be completely different depending on who you're talking to. Okay, so let's use this in the real estate sense here. So this is a different situation at work. So let's say you're at work, you're working with a client, even though sales and service also really applies in both of these instances. But let's say you're working with a colleague and a coworker, right? So someone who's a dominant style, this is what you need to help them do. You need to reel them in a little bit and give them more realistic gauge of the risks, right? Dominant personalities tend to really take charge and they really want to get things done and sometimes don't fully understand the risk or the cause and effect of their behavior, right? Exercise more caution and deliberation before making decisions. Follow pertinent rules, regulations, and expectations. Recognize and solicit others' contributions. Tell others the reasons for their decisions. That's a big one. D's tend to make choices without explaining the thought process behind them, right? So as we're communicating to them, make sure you're helping pull that out in that situation. And then cultivate more attention and responsiveness to emotions. They tend to be more emotionally disconnected, right? They're the people that easily disconnect work and their personal lives. You know, I'm at work and now I'm personal. So the influencing style, they're going to prioritize and organize. You need to help them prioritize and organize. Eyes tend to be all over the place. And whoever's watching that are my fantastic, lovely eyes, Stephanie. I can say that because, surprise, I'm an I too. Well, Stephanie and I are both I's and D's, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But eyes tend to be all over the place, right? We're the over-promisers and under-deliverers because all we want to do is people please, right? We want to make people happy. So you always want to try to reel them in and go, okay, let's organize what you're thinking. Let's organize and create an action plan. See tasks through to completion. That's an easy one. View people and tasks more objectively. They're people that can get caught up in the moment. Avoid overuse and of giving and taking advice. I have to remind myself of that all the time. Because I'll do it all the time. I'll say, oh, you know what I think you should do, blah, blah, blah. And then I remind myself they never asked for me to tell them what to do. So it's something you can always help them with. Writing things down is a big one, making sure that you grab a paper and pen and write or type it out. So steady style. So you're going to help them to utilize shortcuts and discard unnecessary steps. So our steadiers are one, it reminds me of like the tortoise and the hare in that race. The steady people are those tortoises. They're the ones that you know absolutely will get the job done, and they know how they want to do it. So you need to help them to take shortcuts and to leave out all the steps. They're the ones that are going to check off all the box, right? Tracking their growth. S's tend to not understand and can put in perspective of how much they've accomplished. They're the people that can sit down and feel like they've been working for hours with no result. Okay, avoiding doing the things the same way. They can get stuck in a rut a little bit. Realize that there's more than one approach to tasks. Become more open to some risks and changes, because again, some risks are okay. Feel sincerely appreciated. So our S's are the ones that need to feel like they're loved and appreciated, and they can't always identify that in others around them. So make sure that you're thanking your S's of the world. Speak up and voice their thoughts and feelings. So that's a big one. Lots of times S's can tend to be on the quieter side because they're very introspective. They really put things into their brain and think about what they're doing before they say it, before they do it. So help them to speak up and to advocate for themselves. So our conscientious style, let's talk about them. They're my favorites. I'm surrounded by C's over here. So to help them share their knowledge and expertise with others, the C's almost always know what to do, right? The C's almost always know what to do, but they don't always know how to say it or feel like it's the right place to say it. So make sure that you encourage them to speak up. Ask them for their opinions. Stop and ask. Stand up for themselves when the people they prefer to avoid. They do not like confrontation. Our C's. They do not like confrontation. Shoot for realistic deadlines and parameters. Again, making sure that it's time-based. View people and tasks less seriously and critically. They tend to be our serious, critical ones, right? Balance their lives with both interactions and tasks. Keep on course with tasks, less checking. So again, they're those, crossing the T's and dotting the I's people, and maintaining high expectations for high priority items, not everything. C's tend to have a hard time with their prioritizing because everything is priority number one for them, right? Every little thing is just as important as the last thing that you gave them. So keep in mind that you might need to express putting things onto their plate. They can get very overwhelmed. So make sure you're expressing to them what needs more attention sooner than later. Okay, so in a nutshell, those are the things that we should focus on at work. In the sales and service side, that's also very similar. And again, I can send this out so you guys can read this in depth. But this is a really important section to understand when you're working with your clients. Okay, because we all know we get clients from all over the spectrum, and lots of times before we're working on closing or we're in the middle of escrow, even giving them communication in a way that they want to receive it and will understand it is going to help get that transaction closed. So say you have a D and you've identified that they're a D by asking some questions. So let's talk about what some of the questions may be. And Stephanie, I want you to chime in here too, of some identifying questions of how when we first start meeting people, what are some of the things that we can ask to help put them into a category to help apply some of this knowledge? So one of the questions I would say right off the bat that I always ask people, especially in buyer's consultations or anything, is I always say this, I text, email, phone call. Which do you prefer? Okay, right off the bat, that's going to give you an idea of what category they're going to go into. So let's say someone is an emailer or a texter. Usually they're going to be in the non-confrontational side spectrum. Okay, so they're going to usually be an S or a C because they like things written down, they like things very clear. Our eyes will always say phone call, almost always say phone call. They love chatting on the phone, they want to connect with you. Usually D's will tend to like some type of text because they want something immediate that they're going to receive. It's going to be short and to the point. So Stephanie, what are some other things that you've asked or that we could ask to help try to identify what category people are in?
Well, just like you indicated, how would you prefer to communicate, right? So that gives a good indication as to what profile that they land in, and sometimes too, take it even further when you ask them, how would you prefer to communicate? Hey, just give me a quick summary, right? That's a driver. Hey, explain it to me in person. That's the eyes, right? And then, because it's interesting, and keep in mind when you have, like Halley and I are both IDs, right? So there's parts of me, just give me a text, give it to me, just bullet point, that's all I want. And then there's other times when it's like, hey, I need to see you. So it all depends on kind of where, what area your particular, like your driver or your influence happens to be in. And then, another question for the stability, the S's, use your standard format. And then, of course, our C's, right? I need details. Mm-hmm. So that's where you're going to give them a long, extensive, email, perhaps, etc. Mm-hmm. And then two, like a lot of times we ask the questions, because remember when we talk about pre-qualifying, like right now, one of our topics over last week and this week are pre-qualifying the seller. And it's, what are you looking for in an agent, aka relationship, right? When you're asking these questions, not only are you trying to find out the information or find what their motivation, but you're trying to figure out how best to communicate with them always. So like for a D, it would be, hey, to achieve my goals, man, I want my home sold, right? And then the I would be, hey, we're going to have a good time. Let's have fun. Let's have a happy hour or a twilight open house or something like that. And then, stability or, the S would be, you know what? I want to trust you. I need to trust that you're going to take care of me, right? And as you guys will learn too, there's little words, little embedded commands and different ways of speaking to these people to make them feel that way. And then the C would be, hey, I'm looking for some reliable, I'm looking for some good advice, quality advice from you on how best to go about this. So really when you're asking these questions, there's a much deeper and rooted reason for the questions that we're asking.
Yeah, those are all fantastic, Stephanie. More questions you can say, when you're working with buyers, for example, how have you been searching for homes? Have you searched before? How do you like to search for homes? That's something else that's going to tell you. If there's someone that walks around the neighborhood and, is just looking for open house signs, they're probably an I. Right? If it's someone who says, oh, well, I've done all my homework, I look on Zillow, I look on Redfin, I have 2 or 3 emails sent out all the time, they're probably someone who's a C, right? A C or an S. A dominant person is going to be like, when I know, right? When I know, I'm going to figure it out, or you're going to send me one home. That's important. You can always ask them questions like, how do you feel about your home? If you're going on a listing presentation, for example, ask them a feelings-based question. That's going to tell you right away. If it's someone who's a D, they're going to be really uncomfortable when you say that. right? An I is going to be so much more open. They're going to be more talkative and more descriptive. They're going to be the ones that are picking out their furniture as you're walking through the homes, where the C's are going to be, I need to make sure the numbers are right. I need to run the numbers. I need to make sure that it's financially important for me to make this move. So, yeah, that's great. So those are just some of the questions that you could help identify what they're really what their style is without them taking the disc, of course. So this is going to just elaborate a little bit further. Of course, it again applies to social settings and learning environments. So social settings is a perfect category for you to put in practice of when you're meeting someone out for happy hour or going on a listing appointment, for example, or even just talking with your spouse or your partner. It's absolutely something. I've had my husband take the disc, and I've known him for like 10 years now. We just celebrated our 5th anniversary. But when he took the test, it was so funny. I felt like I really understood him now, and I understood why at times of stress we clash. So it's something I'm working on just recently over the last month. So please apply it to other aspects of what you're doing. So again, understanding partners or understanding others and adaptability is really important. So remember with the disc, people want to be treated according to their style, not yours. So as much as we want to understand our own style, it's more important for us to understand and be able to identify other people's styles, and particularly the distinction between direct and indirect communication and guarded and open communication, right? So again, this talks a little bit and breaks down, the different styles and the different characteristics. So D characteristics, again, they think logically, they're concerned with being number one, so when they say one of these things over here, because it's very common to have this come up in their dialogue, go over to the other side and counter their thought process with something that challenges them. So, when they're trying to think, logically, make sure that that you are displaying reasoning, right? So when they want facts and highlights, make sure you're being really concise with the data that you're providing to a D. D's like changes, so make sure you're varying your routine. Okay, keep that in mind, varying your routine. D's quite often want others to notice their accomplishments. Make sure you compliment them on what you've done or what they've done, that work that they've done, right? Need to be in charge. Let them take the lead when appropriate, but give them parameters. So I think that's really important and very applicable for our business because a lot of Ds like doing their home search. I don't know if you've encountered that very often, but I will have D clients or even realtors themselves, and they like to do the Zillow. They like to do their realtor.com. I get them onto the KW app, and that's the most fantastic thing we can provide them right now. But lots of times I'll let them know I'm going to do my own search, but if you want to do your searching on Zillow or Redfin, once you found a property, shoot it over to me because I have access to more information than that's on the site. Right? So that's a way for you to let them know that they can take the lead on that if they want, but you can give them parameters, right? Communicating with the influencer style. Make sure eyes can be concerned with approval and appearances. I think approval is really important. Eyes can tend to be the family decision makers where mom and grandma and husband and everyone has a very strong influence in their life and their decision. So show them that you admire them and like them and really help encourage them to make their own decisions. Right? So they're going to seek enthusiastic people, try to match their level by behaving optimistically and provide an upbeat setting for them to be a part of. So they tend to think emotionally, support their feelings when possible, but it's important to not support all the feelings because they're the ones that can go down the rabbit hole of negativity. right? They're the ones that can go down and focus on the little things that don't really matter, in regards to their emotions. Um, Skipping through, they want others to notice them, again, compliment them personally and often, don't compliment them as a group. They often need help getting organized, so do it together is a perfect thing. Make sure you don't, bark orders at them, but maybe get involved with that process of actually organizing or whatever you need to accomplish. Okay, communicating with the S's. So they're concerned with stability quite often. So show how your ideas minimize risk. Now, that's really important in the real estate industry because when you're writing offers, they can tend to get, or reviewing offers, they can tend to really get wrapped up in the details. And it can become really overwhelming that sometimes you need to really push them to make a decision. So when they think logically, make sure you're showing reasoning, make sure you're providing data and proof, right? They need to know step-by-step sequences. So try to provide outlines of 2 or 3 instructions as you personally walk them through. So as you're creating your listing presentation and your buyer's consultations, I challenge each of you to try to put something in there that's really going to speak to each one of these communication styles. So make sure that you have a good timeline for your S's, make sure you ask some feeling-based questions for your I's, make sure you're being very direct with your D's. S's tend to enjoy teamwork. Make sure you provide them with a cooperative group. It's really important that your whole team, your title reps, your loan officer, down your home warranty people really are all a part of your team. Make sure they understand the DISC profile just as much as you do. So let's move on to our conscientious people. So again, when they start exhibiting these characteristics, when they're thinking logically, show your reasoning. If they're concerned with aggressive approaches, approach them in an indirect, non-threatening way. So Stephanie, let's say we've got a C. Okay, you have a C client, and they're concerned because the agent on the other side, let's say you're representing the buyer, the selling agent or the listing agent on the other side is really aggressive. Right? So what are some of the things that you could do or say to them to help calm their nerves?
When speaking to a C, when they have a D on the other side?
Yes.
Yeah, well, just, you want them to be able to check, let's say you're going through home inspection reports, right? And you just want, you have to appease their particular personality, right? And kind of explain to them about the driver that, yes, they do want answers right away. However, we do have the opportunity to carefully analyze and digest the home inspection report about maybe the different requests for repairs, and then really, explain the advantages and disadvantages to the situation, right? So, and it's all about trying to set the expectations and getting them to understand the other side, but allow them the time to digest. Yes, and a lot of times, keep in mind that we as the agents, we take the burden of dealing with the different personalities, right? So if I'm dealing with the listing agent knowing that the seller isn't demanding, right? But I know that I have maybe a couple days or whatever, I don't necessarily need to relay that demands, right, in their aggressive behavior to the C, right, to allow them to feel more comfortable, if that makes sense, right? So it gives them the opportunity to digest, check everything out carefully, and just be as, like I said, explain the advantages and disadvantages with them, and allow them the safe place to ask as many questions so that they feel safe during the transaction.
Yeah, it's important the word you use safe in there, right? Especially with our S's and C's, which tend to be lumped together in the same category. They need that safety. So on this second page that you see right here, you're going to see basically how to modify your pace and priority with any of these characteristics and styles. So pace is important when you're having your dialogue, right? Because you're working with a client, D's will be fast. It's important that you rise to their level and increase your pace. Be prepared and organized. I's, you're going to increase your pace because they think and run a mile a minute. Making sure you're getting excited with them, speak and move at a faster pace. With S's, you're going to maintain the pace. And who sets that focus and that pace? It's gonna be your S. So maintain it on the level that they have. So develop trust and credibility over time. Do not force it. These are not the people that you use scripts on, right? These are not the people that you're pushing into a sale. You really need to develop that credibility with them. Otherwise, they're not going to trust you. And then with our C's, again, maintain pace. So when you're speaking to them, make sure you're prepared to answer the questions. Speak and move at a slower pace. Make sure you are speaking much slower than what you expect to speak, especially if you're an I or a D. It's something I constantly have to remind myself to do. And then again, priority, moving on to there, keep them, adapt your focus. Make sure you're being very adaptable, very fluid. With I's, help maintain their focus. Again, let them set that parameter and focus, but you need to maintain it on their level as far as priority goes. S is the same thing. Get to know them personally, approach them in a friendly way. C's, you want to adapt that focus and be prepared with lots of logic, making sure you're following regulations and rules, which is important. So when you're modifying your directness and openness, we have direct and indirect. We're going to increase our directness when we're working with D's. We're really going to be upfront, very direct with them, use very specific words. With I's, increase your directness. You have to really confront them. S's, again, maintain directness. C's, maintain directness. So you really want to let them set the pace, particularly if you're an I or a D and you're encountering that situation. So let's move to the flip side, guarded and openness. You need to decrease the openness with D's, right? So make sure that you're getting to the bottom line. Don't be as open. Don't be as verbal. Be very direct with them. With I's, maintain openness. You really need to share your feelings. They're going to set that precedence. With S, be really open, right? Be very open with them. They want to hear your feelings. They want to build that genuine human connection with you. C's tend to be very guarded, okay? Decrease your openness with them. Go back into the numbers, maintain a logical, factual orientation about your dialogue and your relationship with them. Okay? So, that in a nutshell is really an overview of how to identify different categories of people. So, this is some example of some of the DISC profiles that I used to give out through my mentor program at my old company. And so I blacked out the names. You guys don't know these people, but this is some examples of some of the things that you can see when you take any of these DISC assessments and kind of what they look like so you can familiarize yourself with them. So this person right here was a mentee of mine. And these are all new agents that came in, by the way. I'm going to offer a little bit of insight, and I really want Stephanie's help and understanding with this. So this person came into me, and this was their DISC style. They were a brand new agent. They were just getting into the industry, and believe it or not, came right up to my door before I even got their DISC profile and said, I am so ready to do my first deal. I have to get money, and I need, I'm ready. So then their disc profile comes along this way. So you can see on here, it's very common for you to have more than one disc profile. So usually when I'm reading these on your own, or if I'm doing an assessment with one of you agents together, I will take into consideration more than one profile if it's above the 50% line. Okay, but in this instance, he doesn't have any above the 50% line, and only that one high, super high D. Now, most disc results are going to give you two different styles. You have your adaptive style and your natural style, and it's really important to understand the difference. Your adaptive style is your behavior that can literally be adapted. Okay, it's something that you can change, you can work on. It's ever moving, ever flowing thing. It's usually the style that you see people at work, right? When you're at work or when you're working, that's usually the style that comes out. Your natural style is truly what it means is your style at your natural state. I say the best thing to do is to say, this is the one when you're with your family and your loved ones, what is your behavior like? Versus when you show up in the real estate office or you show up at your buyer or listing appointment. That's the adapted style. Your natural style is what you're going to be hanging out on the couch, right? Or being at your home, doing yard work, whatever that is. So in this person's case, they are such a high D, like just such a high D, right? Nothing else really comes close. They do have a little bit of C in there, but in my opinion, nothing really to note to really take over their D style. Okay? So these are some of the words in his profile. These are some of the words that were, again, most used to describe him versus least used to describe him. And you'll see them there in the little boxes. Just in case you guys are wondering, I did forget to say this in the beginning. This is the Tony Robbins free disc profile assessment. You can actually go on their website and take it. There is a very extensive, like 60-page disc profile, and I think it's like $50 or something. But you can get it totally free. Just by the way, that's what this format is. So you can see in here his behaviors. So Stephanie, if I were an agent coming into your office like this with this type of disc profile and you saw this, what were some of the ways that you would suggest I were to go out and to get business?
Well, this person is just going to go out and get business. But they just obviously without reading anything and not knowing the personality of the person, or you know what I'm saying?
Right. Let's just say all you had was this.
Yeah, it would be like, and there'd be no filter whatsoever, and would probably be, this person would need to help with their refining of their delivery and their adaptability to other people. Mm-hmm. Because, especially if you go out in the adapted style, I mean, there's absolutely no S whatsoever. So it's just really will need to assist them with their communication style, because right now they would probably only be able to get other D's in their business, right? In their pipeline. Because, like we always say, people like people who are like them. And this person has such a strong D that, I can have conversations with D's all day long, but I don't know so much about the other 75% in the pool, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Especially with such a strong D, right? There really is no level to it. So some of the ways, because I want to discuss like business opportunities, for example, like some of the ways D's would do fantastic with growing their business is going to be like cold calling, door knocking, something that's immediate result related, right? It's going to be, the door knocking, the cold calling, open house, they might struggle at, to be quite honest, because they're going to have a hard time identifying with those other categories and being able to be open with those people. So those are just some of the ideas for Ds. If you're a D out there and you are fantastic at open house, Congrats to you again. Hopefully, you are the exception and not the rule, because they tend to need more of that direct results oriented type behavior. And then again, you can see some words that better describe him. Again, a behavioral style, just in a nutshell, is a producer, right? So there's someone who's going to seek challenges and projects, and they're very self-reliant. They're going to be the ones that really, really go out on their own. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, this was another one of my fantastic mentees. And this person had this style that popped up, which I thought was really interesting. Stephanie, what does this DISC profile assessment tell you? What does this one tell you?
Well, it tells me that they're strong in most of the areas except for the D, right? Which is, that huge sense of urgency, et cetera, to get things done. So then their approach, they love being in the crowds. They love the numbers still. They want to listen. They love the loyalty. So there's some, incredible qualities. And then it would be important for them to truly identify what's important to them, to get a little fire under their tushy, right, to go get business done. So you'd have to figure out where another avenue to be able to get their sense of urgency to go out and get the biz.
Mm-hmm. And these are going to be the people that really excel at open houses, for example. Usually pretty good with calling on the phone, maybe warm leads. Cold calls are a little aggressive for someone with an S and a C this high. But to translate it to the client form, again, they're going to be the ones that are super excited. They're going to send you lots of pictures and use lots of feeling. Stephanie, what are some words and phrases that you would hear an I client say?
An I client?
Yeah.
Like they feel, right? Oh, I feel this way. Because they like the group setting. They like the enthusiasm. They like, it's like, woohoo! So they're definitely, Halley, where'd you go? There you are. So they definitely are more animated, right? So remember, like I said before, we mimic, and I don't know if I said it on this one already, but we mimic and mirror who we're speaking to, especially as we're building rapport, right? So to build rapport, you want to be, more like them. So yes, the I's are very descriptive. They're storytellers, and sometimes with the I people, if you want them to stop talking, you have to do a pattern interrupt. You have to do something to interrupt their flow, so then you guys can come back on track, right?
Yeah, they're gonna say things like, "Oh, I need to show my family first." Right? Oh, I like it, but I need to talk with my family and show my family. Or, oh, my mom's going to come with me. They're the ones that are going to bring people to see houses in particular. So again, these are some more words that describe this person. So yeah, they're the harmonizer. That's a fantastic word to kind of sum it up. They're someone who wants to keep the peace, which can be difficult when you're in the middle of a transaction, and they just want to make everyone happy. So especially if you have an I and someone else in a relationship, it can sometimes be really tumultuous in the middle of the heated arguments and things that can happen in negotiations when you're dealing with a transaction. So here's another one. So this is an interesting one because their natural style and adaptive style is a little bit different. And sorry about that. Their natural style and their adaptive style is a lot different. So again, I'm going to go by their adaptive style because that's normally what we encounter when we're in our industry. So this person's a high C. Okay. So when they came through, C's are going to be really good at doing things like running the numbers and creating informative social media posts and emails, and they're going to be the follow-up system people, right? They're going to be the ones that have fantastic CRMs, figured out. And really lean into that. If you're any of my C's on here watching, you really lean into that process and set up those for you. So what are some things, Stephanie, that you hear C's say if they're a client? What are some of the words and phrases that you hear them say in the industry?
Yeah, well, I want to see the numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with the C people, you always want to make sure, I mean, you should anyway, everybody, but always have the net sheet with you, right? Because they want to see the data, they want to know the rules, regs, all that kind of stuff, and make sure that you have the market statistics with you, right? So you'll want to have the little charts or all that kind of stuff so they understand not only what they're going to net bottom line after the sale is done, but you have to give them supporting documentation for whatever price that you're trying to get them to, etc. So they want to know what's happening. So they want the data for sure.
Yeah, they're very data driven. They'll say things like, how are the interest rates? They almost always ask that. How are the interest rates? What's the market doing? Where, say, the I's and the D's may not be as concerned about that. So, and then let's move on. So again, there are planners of our behavioral style. So this one's really interesting here. So this person was all over the place. So I'm going to say this is a hard one. I've seen this before. So again, these people are going to be harder to identify when they're all over the place. They're going to have a little bit of each personality. So it's important to try to appeal to each personality, right? So make sure you're giving them a plethora of things in either the workplace or within your communications when you're at your appointments. So try to really push each direction and each element out of them a little bit more. So let's say these are S's. Let's just say the dominant style is an S. So what are some things that an S would say in the field, Steph?
Well, they want to make sure that they listen carefully, that you're listening. So it's like, they need to hear what you have to say, right? They want to make sure. Oh, you're talking about the S's, yeah. Okay, you want to make sure that there's predictability. So this is so they would want to know, okay, when are you going to communicate with me? When do I expect to hear from you? When will the open house be? And then in return, they want to be appreciated, right? So, but it's basically, highlighting their relationship. So how is this relationship going to work? How are you going to be there for me throughout this entire transaction?
Mm-hmm. And you want to, they're going to be the ones that say, I'm going to think about it overnight and I'll get back to you in the morning, right? Or I need to have the weekend to think about this. So sometimes, particularly in a stressful situation, say, you're in a multiple offer situation, you're going back and forth, they have to make a fast decision. It's important that you let them have that time if applicable, right?
Yeah, because they don't want to make the wrong decision.
Exactly. But it's our job as realtors to help push them a little bit, because they want to take the time and really think it out. But sometimes, we know we don't always have that time available to us. So just make timelines and parameters really clear and try to meet them halfway here. So again, they're a formalist is a good word to basically, draw them in. These are all kind of the same. Perfect. So let's say any of you on this call are thinking about maybe one day building a team. I think that this is important for any level of organization, that you really look into this DISC profile. So you teams and you people that are thinking about building your teams, just know, reach out to your team leaders, because we can help you not only take the DISC profile, but help you analyze the type of agents that you're looking for to help complete your team, right? So traditionally, very often, our rainmakers tend to be D's, Okay, they tend to like running the show. But guess what? As you're building your team, you shouldn't have a bunch of D's as buyers agents, right? You shouldn't have a D running your administrative books, right? And handling your client stuff. So if you have a team currently right now, do a bit of an assessment yourself and think about who do you work with, who is on your team, and who are you missing from your team? What category would you put them under, right? Then, if you need any further help, come to us, TLs. We'll sit and help you and go, you need a buyer's agent that's an I, right? You need someone that's going to go out and talk to people. Or you have a lot of I's and D's on your team. You need an S. You need a different flavor of ice cream, right? Because your I's and your D's might not resonate with everyone. So, spoiler alert, almost across the board, very easily can I say, most realtors are I's or D's. You tend to get some C's in there, but most realtors, especially leadership, are I's and D's. Now, if you're an S or you're a C and you're watching this, does that mean you can't be a rainmaker? No. Right? Because the whole point that we started this conversation was saying this is a snapshot for you to help work on being what's adaptable and what you need to adapt. So if you're an S and a C out there watching saying, I think I want to start a team, I want to be a mega agent, I want to build my wealth, what can you do? Look back on all those things that we went over today, pull out your DISC profile, and ask yourself, where can I be more assertive? Where can I be more open? Where can I be more direct? How can I make my processes shorter, quicker, more efficient? How can I be more results based? So make sure if you're considering hiring an agent, building a team, if you already have a team, do this little bit of an assessment. Okay. So this last page right here are questions that I challenge each of you to ask. So once you've gone through your DISC assessment, whatever that looks like, there usually is a portion at the end of it that I encourage all of you to really fill out so you can really gather that information and again become more self-aware. So ask yourself these types of questions. Where do I currently excel at work? And what motivators are already in play for me? Which motivators don't need any additional attention? Which motivators am I currently struggling and need an extra boost? Using my understanding of motivational orientation, which type of additional motivations would work best for me right now? Okay. Using my understanding of motivational orientation, which additional motivations would not work for me right now? Okay. Choose one harmful influence on your motivational orientation. Take in small steps to act on today, practice, and repeat. Choose one positive influence on your motivational orientation and act today, practice, and repeat. And we're all motivated to get better, but we get stuck with the process. We must go through to move forward to get what we want. How can I make the process of making progress smaller and simpler? List up to 3 steps. So go back and answer all those questions for yourself and, assess everything that you're doing, assess what you read, and move on from there. So in a nutshell, that's the DISC broken down into itty bitty bits and pieces, like a sushi chef that we just like, it served it up for you. I can send out, please, send me an email, halley@kw.com, HALLEY, at kw.com, and I can send this out to you. Stephanie, do you have some last words for us about the DISC profile?
The only thing that I would say is just versatility, right? Just be open to being versatile. It's and you'll be good, right? So just all across the board. But you guys are all amazing, regardless of where you fall in the DISC, and love being in business with you guys.
Mm-hmm. So if you haven't taken the DISC, take the DISC. Find a free version online. Reach out to your team leaders if you have any questions. Again, if you're building a team, we're here for you, and this is a fantastic tool. Thanks for joining us, and reach out if you have any questions. But otherwise, go forth and master your communication. Okay, you guys? Thank you. Thank you again to Stephanie for joining me today, and we will see you guys all soon.
All right, great job, Halley. Bye, Ronette.